A former intern is sharing stories about how Blake Lively made her cry.
As I walked out, I just started crying because I was afraid.
She and her husband are bullied.
Blake Lively just lost it after the host of Saturday Night Live completely destroyed her and Ryan Reynolds.
He was getting a lot of hate.
Now, you might be wondering, who has a personal grudge against this so-called power couple? Well, let me tell you, none other than Scarlett Johansson's husband. Yes, Scarlett, the ex-wife of Ryan Reynolds.
This is a mean girl. This isn't a good person.
February 2025. SNL's 50th anniversary special. A night that was supposed to celebrate 5 decades of comedy. But instead, it became a public execution of Blake Lively's and Ryan Reynolds' reputations.
At first, I was so upset that they hired Penn for Gossip Girl, I actually poisoned the whole cast against him.
And let's be honest, this was long overdue. These two walked into the studio acting like they still had an ounce of credibility left, as if the world hadn't spent months watching their $400 million lawsuit disaster unfold like a flaming garbage truck rolling downhill.
It'll be very difficult for anyone to ever work with Blake Lively ever again.
Did they rewrite the SNL script, too? Terrible humans. Everything was fine until Tina Fey and Amy Poehler threw Ryan a softball question. Literally the easiest one in the game. How's it going, Ryan? And instead of just smiling and nodding like a normal person, he smirked and dropped the dumbest, most self-sabotaging line imaginable.
Go fucking
Mean Girl, yeah.
Also,
Wasn't she in Mean Girl?
Yeah, she
no,
was.
she was. No, she wasn't. That's
Gossip Girl.
She was in Gossip.
Oh, Gossip Girl, yeah.
And just like that, the entire room shifted. The laughs that followed? Oh, they weren't real laughs. Those were the nervous, second-hand embarrassment kind. The kind where people don't know whether to actually laugh or just pretend they didn't hear it. Steven Spielberg looked like he wanted to disappear. Amy Poehler gave a blink-and-you'll-miss-it wince. And the only person not making a sound? Blake Lively.
I was a matching pet monkey with coordinating outfits, and I was like, I would love to be part of the show, but I can't act with a monkey. And then I got a few of them.
She turned to him with an expression so sharp it could cut glass. Because she knew. She knew that the second that dumb joke left his mouth, every single person in that audience was thinking about the lawsuit.
He admits to poisoning the whole cast against...
Ryan and Blake hadn't made a single public appearance since Justin Baldoni dropped that lawsuit on them like a nuclear bomb. And instead of laying low, doing damage control, or maybe, just maybe, not reminding people they exist, they strutted into SNL like royalty, thinking they could charm their way out of this. Delusion at its finest. But oh, how quickly the smokescreen shattered.
Now other footage is coming out of Blake Lively admitting, hey, when I get involved with projects, they hire me as the actress, and sometimes I don't really tell them, but I actually want to come in and I want to rewrite it, and I want to be a producer, and I want to do all of these things.
Because here's the thing, Hollywood had already moved on. The industry was done pretending these two were some kind of golden couple. And the second they stepped into that studio, the audience knew what was coming. Blake had spent months trying to rewrite reality, spinning an Oscar-worthy victim story. But Ryan was about to wreck it all, in one of the most embarrassing live TV moments of his career.
The conversation starter, she was sitting there, I think she was probably 8 months pregnant. She had it wasn't a small bump even, it was quite big.
You have a baby on the way, congratulations.
What makes you say that?
The shark told me.
You don't ever say that to a...
Things were already bad, but they got even worse when Ryan Reynolds was out there torching his career in real time. Because SNL had something even more brutal planned for Blake. Enter Colin Jost. And this wasn't just any joke. This was Scarlett Johansson's husband, a man with every reason to despise Ryan Reynolds, delivering the ultimate revenge in front of millions. His delivery? Cold, calculated, and absolutely lethal.
We have diapers in the car. Honestly, I have so many kids that I could just give you some of those.
Thank you.
The diapers.
That was a death blow. Let's break it down. The joke wasn't just about Baldoni. It was about Blake. It made her the punchline. It confirmed what everyone already suspected. Hollywood wanted nothing to do with her. And you could feel it in the room.
Girlfriend. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you should leave him.
For a split second, the audience went silent. That brief hesitation before laughter, that was everyone processing just how brutal that line really was. Even Colin Jost knew what he had just done. He laughed before even finishing the sentence because he knew this joke was going to explode. And it did. That moment sealed Blake Lively's fate.
Accused of having turned the whole cast of It Ends With Us against Justin. By the time they premiered the movie, Ryan Reynolds had unfollowed him on Insta, so had Blake, so had the rest of.
Ryan thought he was being clever. He thought he was being Deadpool funny. But all he really did was set himself up for Colin Jost to land the final blow. And just like that, Blake Lively's PR house of cards collapsed. Because this wasn't just a little roast, this was a message straight from Hollywood itself.
Justin Baldoni purchased the rights to the book, It Ends With Us. He is the producer, director, and one of the lead actors in it.
They don't respect her. They don't take her seriously. And they're done buying into her victim narrative. Just like that, in one disastrous night, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively went from Hollywood royalty to industry-wide punchlines.
She took over every single aspect of the movie. The movie was really aimed at, providing education and insight and relating to the stories of what women go through when they experience DV. She made it a lighthearted thing.
For years, Blake Lively sold the world a polished, airbrushed, perfectly packaged fantasy. She was Hollywood's sweetheart, the effortlessly charming A-lister, the feminist darling who could do no wrong.
So she filed a lawsuit before actually having clear evidence, and we're supposed to just continue to believe.
But here's the thing, reality always catches up. And in 2024, reality bulldozed straight through the PR fairytale. Because Hollywood finally got tired of pretending.
Through it, they're seeing through the BS, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who are seeking gag orders against Baldoni from releasing information, whereas his team is saying, nope, let's put out everything.
And let's be real, Ryan Reynolds doesn't know how to shut up. If he had even an ounce of self-awareness, he would have let the joke die. Instead, he doubled down. Because this is the same man who thought it would be a great idea to use Deadpool and Wolverine to take petty jabs at Baldoni when the lawsuit first started. This brings us to Ryan's first major PR disaster, the Deadpool meltdown.
In the end, that's exactly what happened. He didn't even get to see the final cut of the movie.
Get out of here.
Because Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds came in with their own team, their own editors. They completely hijacked this.
Back in December 2024, when the lawsuit was still fresh, Ryan had a choice. He could have handled things like an adult, let his overpaid lawyers do their jobs. But no. Instead, he did the most Ryan Reynolds thing possible. He turned Baldoni into a Deadpool joke. He created an entire character, Nice Paul, a soft-spoken, over-the-top feminist, a cringeworthy male ally with zero substance.
Because Blake Lively had alienated the entire cast against him. She had convinced everyone that he was this monster, this terrible person, so she could wield all creative control of the movie and end up getting her final cut of the movie, not Justin Baldoni.
You didn't need to be a genius to see who he was mocking. And just to really drive the point home, he threw in a pregnancy-related jab. Because apparently, mocking Baldoni's activism on reproductive rights is peak comedy in Ryan Reynolds' brain.
For the screening, she made him and his whole family go down to the basement.
Go down to the basement during the premiere of his movie. He literally was not even allowed to be at the premiere of his own movie.
Why?
Baldoni's team clocked it immediately. So did the public. Because nothing screams mature, responsible Hollywood star like using your $300 million superhero movie to throw a tantrum disguised as satire. And now, months later, Ryan was doing it again. Except this time, it wasn't a scripted Hollywood production. This time, it was live. In front of millions. And Blake Lively was sitting right there.
Made it a lighthearted thing. She wanted to talk about, wear your florals, and she used it as an opportunity to promote her alcohol brand, which is insane because many people know that alcoholism really fuels DV as well. So it was completely tone deaf.
And let's take a moment to appreciate the irony of it all. Blake spent months crafting the perfect PR sob story, painting herself as a wronged woman, fighting back against a manipulative director. She hired a former CIA fixer. She planted stories. She tried to flip the narrative.
Isn't a good person. And in response to this, what she did was she created a smear campaign against Baldoni, stating that actually he was making a smear campaign against her. And that's the reason why she had all of this negative backlash.
Then, her own husband, the one person who was supposed to help her keep this charade together, went on live TV and turned their entire legal scandal into a joke. When the lawsuit hit, people started talking. And not just fans. Not just gossip blogs. Actual Hollywood insiders. People who had worked with her. People who had survived the nightmare of being in her orbit. And suddenly, the carefully controlled Blake Lively brand started looking a whole lot different.
This is such an important story. I know you don't give a shit about it, but this is such an important story. Because if they would have won against him, A guy whose dream was to be a Hollywood actor, producer, director, they could have crushed his career if they would have.
More than 50 crew members from It Ends With Us came forward, and let's just say the reviews were not glowing. Instead of the sweet, lovable leading lady she had spent years pretending to be, they described a controlling, manipulative, power-obsessed monster who treated people like disposable props in her personal empire.
She compares herself to Khaleesi. I believe she has dragons. She's like, I have dragons just like Khaleesi. I have Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift. They were doing everything they could to intimidate this guy, who is a much smaller actor than Blake Lively.
Crew members were literally forbidden from making eye contact with her. Let that sink in. No eye contact. No speaking to her unless absolutely necessary. Imagine being so entitled that you think looking at you is some kind of privilege. This wasn't A-list behavior. This was dictator-level lunacy.
By the way, he's finished. He's done. Like, in Hollywood, nobody's gonna touch him. So that person that you're talking about, it's him.
Kevin
His
Spacey
dreams,
will.
everything that he's done. And then Amy, just really fast, can you go back to the editing process? There was text messages where the editor was like, to him.
And then there were the journalists. 4 years, they played along, letting Blake shape whatever glossy, picture-perfect narrative she wanted. But once the lawsuit exposed the cracks, suddenly, they weren't so eager to keep up the charade.
Lively sued Baldoni in December of 2024, accusing him of sexual harassment on a set and launching a smear campaign against her.
And that's when Blake really started unraveling. Enter one of the biggest PR disasters of 2024, the Kirsty Flahavan interview. Now, if you thought Blake Lively was good at faking her way through interviews, this one proved otherwise. Because in July 2024, during what was supposed to be a harmless little press tour moment, Blake let her real personality slip. And the internet never forgot.
While Baldoni counter-sued Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds for defamation and extortion on Wednesday, Lively filed an amend law complaint stating she was not alone in raising allegation of on-set
Kirsty, being a normal, polite human, congratulated Blake on her pregnancy. Pretty standard. Nothing controversial. Nothing loaded. Just a simple, supportive remark. And Blake? Blake decided to turn it into a personal attack.
To this, she was getting a lot of hate. In fact, people were posting old interviews of her that weren't even really relevant at all to the movie, but they're just highlighting, this is a mean girl. This isn't a good person.
She shot back, congrats on yours. One tiny problem. Kirsty Flahavan wasn't pregnant. Even worse, she had publicly spoken about her struggles with infertility. And just like that, Blake Lively managed to create one of the most disgusting, heartless, and tone-deaf viral moments of the year.
Things like he walked in on her breastfeeding. She said things like he chastised her for her.
Because this wasn't some accidental slip-up. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was Blake, choosing in real time to humiliate someone on camera, for no reason other than her own inflated ego. The internet exploded. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Every platform turned into a Blake Lively hate parade.
In fact, messaged him saying, hey, I'm breastfeeding right now, but come into my trailer. Let's go ahead and run some lines.
And this wasn't the usual celebrity backlash. This wasn't people getting upset over a dumb joke or a controversial tweet. This was Blake showing the world exactly who she really was. Her feminist icon card? Revoked. Her America's sweetheart status? Gone. Her entire career? Hanging by a thread. Because here's the thing about Hollywood. They'll cover for you as long as you're useful. But once your reputation becomes a liability, they'll throw you under the bus so fast you won't even see it coming. And Blake Lively? She was officially Hollywood's newest PR disaster.
Referencing her legal team's attempt to subpoena his text messages,
Blake Lively lost her composure when the host of Saturday Night Live ruthlessly targeted both her and Ryan Reynolds.
She made a comment that Baldoni said she was too heavy for him to lift. That's not true. He simply said, I have a back injury. How much should I train to be able to lift you? Something along those lines. And she made it a complaint about weight, and then they actually put it in the Deadpool movie.
You might be asking, who holds a personal vendetta against this so-called power couple? Well, let me answer. None other than Scarlett Johansson's husband. Yes, Scarlett, the ex-wife of Ryan Reynolds.
One of the other conditions, she said, we need to have an intimacy coordinator on set because I'm not comfortable with being close with you because you're doing all these inappropriate things.
February 2025. SNL's 50th anniversary special. What was meant to be a celebration of 50 years of comedy turned into a public spectacle, tarnishing Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' reputations.
provided a text message showing, hey, I have an intimacy coordinator. I'll get you on a call with her. No, I'm fine, thank you. I don't need to meet with the intimacy coordinator. So essentially, every single thing that she's claimed against him has been disproved.
Let's be real, this moment was long overdue. These two waltzed into the studio acting like they still had any credibility left, as if the world hadn't watched their $400 million lawsuit drama unfold like a catastrophe.
Like asking for like my address or my phone number or like my location share. Or I could just location share you and then we could I'm just curious.
Did they mess with the SNL script too? Terrible decision. Things were fine until Tina Fey and Amy Poehler tossed Ryan an easy question. How's it going, Ryan? And instead of handling it like a normal person, he smirked and made the most self-sabotaging comment ever. Interview 6. And just like that, the entire atmosphere shifted. The laughter that followed wasn't genuine, it was filled with second-hand embarrassment. Spielberg looked uncomfortable. Amy Poehler gave a quick wince. And Blake Lively? She didn't make a sound.